So I start out all of my talks pretty much with a very similar question, which I want you to think about, and you're only going to get 20 seconds to think about this because I am on the clock, as you know, and that is, how do you define success? Success for yourself, success for your kids, success for your grandchildren. What are the characteristics of a successful person? We've got all different kinds of definitions when I talk to adults, but when I talk to kids, a very specific definition comes up over and over again. And to understand that, we have to go back 30 years to when I first was doing research, and I shadowed 5 who were considered to be very successful kids doing very well in a large public high school in the Bay Area. And the 5 of them helped me to write a book. Each one wrote his or her own chapter with me. And one day I was shadowing. As I did, I shadowed them from the beginning of the day, all the way from the bus stop, all the way through the day, all the way through when they were doing their homework and extracurricular activities for an entire school year. It's called an ethnography. And one day I was talking to Kevin, and Kevin was raising his hand, and I said, "Kevin, what did you learn today?" And he said, "People don't go to school to learn. They go to get good grades, which brings them to college, which brings them the high-paying job, which brings them to happiness, or so they think." And really implicit in this definition, and I heard it from lots and lots of kids, is that there's this straight line path to success, and success has to do with happiness and money, that little pot of gold at the end, and there's only one way to get there. And you have to get good grades in middle school in order to get into whatever high school and keep getting into those classes that you want to in high school and get the grades in high school in order to get into a prestigious university. In Kevin's case, that's what his goal was. And if for whatever reason you don't get into that prestigious university, guess what goes away? The good job, the high-paying job, the money, the happiness. And over again, we hear kids with this very sort of external, extrinsic, straight line view of how to get to happiness, when you and I and the rest of the world knows that this is really more what that path to success looks like, right? And that success is not necessarily defined by happiness or money or what happens at the end of this very straight line, but you get to put your own success definition at the end of this very circuitous path. And so what we do is try to figure out what is really the secret sauce. How can we help sort of backwards plan and make sure that we're ending up with kids with this sort of understanding of the path to success? And our definition of success at Challenge Success is to have thriving students, you really need to have 3 components, and these all correlate. It doesn't matter where you start, they all kind of fit together. You need kids who are healthy, right? They have well-being, both physical well-being. They're able to get out of bed in the morning. They're not totally exhausted, dragging themselves through the day. They have mental health, which is very big right now. You know that the U.S. Surgeon General wrote a whole report on student mental health. They also have to feel like they belong, that they have an adult who they can go to who cares for them, whether that's in school or at home. They have to feel like they are valued and respected and known and seen. And they have to feel engaged. We want them to be, to do the work, right? That's called behavioral engagement, but also be affectively engaged, enjoy what they're doing, and see the value and meaning and purpose in it. This is not easy in today's schools. In fact, we don't see this almost across the board. We have 90% of kids are sleep deprived. We have 75% reporting exhaustion and headaches because of stress. About half of them put forth effort, but really rarely find school interesting. The 2 things that kids say most of the time they're feeling in school is bored and tired, right? Imagine if all of your employees were saying every day they were feeling bored and tired. This is not a recipe for success, right? Lots of anxiety, other mental health issues, and a lack of feeling like they belong. In our survey, and we've surveyed for really over the past 12 years, over 310,000 middle and high school kids at over 300 schools. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through what their daily experience looks like. One of the biggest stressors for kids is homework. You see it at home. It might be a stressor for you as a parent as well. And this is an average. We've got kids who are doing none, obviously, and kids who are doing way more, up to maybe 5, 6, 7 hours, depending on their load. But the average is about 2.7 hours per night at the high school level, except we've got about 1/3 of the kids doing over 3.5 hours a night of homework in our high school survey, and that's associated with poorer health, right? It correlates with exhaustion, it correlates with stress, and the kicker is only over 50% perceive that most of their homework is actually busy work. It doesn't mean that it is, but that's how they're perceiving it. They are not seeing this as purposeful or meaningful. Good news is after school, they're busy. They're doing a lot of extracurriculars. Extracurriculars are great. You get your body in motion. You have a relationship with an adult who's not necessarily giving you a grade. You're meeting new kids. You're having new challenges. All of that is good. However, how much is too much, right? How busy are these kids? Well, we've got kids doing no extracurriculars all the way up to, at the high school level, 35 hours a week, almost like a job on the side, right? I'm not even counting paid work. That's in a totally different category. They're doing swim team before school. They're doing Model United Nations. They're doing water polo. They're doing piano lessons. They're super, super busy. So I just told you how much homework they're doing, how much they're doing after school. This is not going to surprise you, but this is the kicker, right? At high school, you need to have between 8 and 10 hours every night of sleep. This is from the National Sleep Foundation and from the Stanford sleep studies. And if you're 13 years old or younger, about 5 to 13, you need between 9 and 11 hours of sleep a night. We're not even coming close. 6.7 is our average. I've got kids sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours a night on a regular basis, right? This is a problem because we now know so much more about sleep. We know there's lots of consequences to sleep deprivation, including a very strong correlation between sleep deprivation and mental health issues, particularly depression and anxiety. We've always known that when you're depressed or anxious, it's a little bit hard to get to sleep and you're kind of ruminating and whatnot, but actually sleep deprivation can trigger now some real mental health issues. Also, they're staying up to study and get better grades, and the kicker is that's not how you get better grades, because when you sleep, that's actually when you cement memories. That's actually when you're learning, and you need the deep kind of sleep to make that happen. We see bullying on the rise because, and you know this, when your own kids are tired, they're just not filtering. They're not saying things that are nice because they're so exhausted and they're tired and they're crabby. And there's more car accidents due to drowsy teen driving than drunk teen driving. So, last depressing slide. We're not seeing good results in the system as it is, right? Lots of disengagement. Cheating is over 70% in a lot of cases. They're not prepared with what we call 21st century skills, which is self-regulation, communication, critical thinking, creativity, literacy skills, lack of resilience. They're kind of falling apart. Even when they get to Stanford, the reason why Challenge Success got started in the first place is the head of the health center at Stanford read my book and said, we've got kids falling apart coming through the system that you've just outlined, and we need to create an intervention. And we've talked about sleep deprivation, the mental health issues, and actually an increase in substance use as a negative coping strategy. So, our mission at Challenge Success is to partner with school communities to elevate student voice. They're the ones in the middle of it. We've got to listen to these kids and implement research-based, equity-centered strategies that improve that trifecta of well-being, belonging, and engagement, and actually help make systems, the school system, better, but also help parents and other community members understand really what kids need. So, as promised, 24 hours in the life of a healthy kid. I want you, as I'm going around, I'm going to make a little time wheel here. I want you to think about maybe your own kid, your oldest kid, your favorite kid, whoever you want to think about right now as we go through the time wheel. Most kids are in school about 7 hours a day. We helped to pass a late start bill in California, yay, that no high school can start before 8:30 a.m. Other states are taking notice because schools are not built around what is healthy for teens, often in terms of their schedule. I'll talk about that more in a second. Kids are doing, on average, you saw 2.7 hours of homework a night at the high school level. On average, they're in extracurriculars anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 hours after school. Paid work, we've got kids, it's an important skill. We want kids to do paid work, but again, if they're at the gas station working till 10 o'clock at night, when are they trying to fit all the rest of this in? When I have students fill this out, I get a question, which is, what is a chore? This is not a good sign for our society, right? So a chore is walking the dog, helping to cook dinner, emptying the dishwasher, right? All of these things add up. When I ask you to figure out how much your kids are doing, that answer should not be 0, and we'll talk more about that. Media is anything with an on-off button and a screen, with the exception of reading for pleasure and listening to music or doing homework. Everything else, media time, some kids, when I ask them to put how many hours or minutes a day they're spending there, they just put 24 hours. They're just on media all the time. Unstructured time is what they're doing for fun. It could be media if it's creative, if it's reading for pleasure, if it's shooting hoops, going out, hanging out with friends. Family time is when the whole family is together, and then that last piece is sleep. And when I ask kids to add up this day, a whole bunch of them are doing more than a 24-hour day, and then I have to break the news to them that there's only 24 hours in a day. But also, a bunch of them are just have pieces of this pie or time wheel that are way too small or way too big. And we are after balance. None of these things in and of itself is a negative or a positive, but we know the research on what kids need. So, how do healthy kids spend their time? It turns out you don't have control over school and homework, although we're working on that, but you do have control over the whole rest of that time wheel. And we have a mnemonic aid at Challenge Success called PDF. And it doesn't stand for Portable Document Format. It stands for playtime, downtime, and family time. And if you look at what are considered the protective factors for kids, factors that keep them healthy, factors that keep them in school, persisting, that keep them from going down a path of substance abuse, et cetera, it turns out they fall into these three categories. So the P, the playtime, if you're little kids, right, you need unstructured play. You need to be allowing your kids to make forts in your living room with blankets and pillows and stuffed animals, because they're actually doing science and engineering and thinking. Especially, it has to be student-directed, unstructured play. So think about the Legos, right? Legos now come with assembly books. If you were smart, you would take the assembly book and put it aside and let that free, unstructured play allow for creativity, innovation. This is where our next generation of innovators is going to come from. Where and when possible, get outside. Lots of data on the benefits of greenery, outside, getting your body in motion, avoiding the overload of extracurriculars. A lot of these kids are doing great extracurriculars and they like them, but how much is too much? Is it exhausting? Are you constantly throwing the goldfish and the Gatorade in the back of the car and saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up? Kids need time and space and time to play on their own. So really think about which of those extracurricular activities are they running to like it's Disneyland versus it's a drag to get them even to get out of the car. And of course, they need social lives. Teens, the way that teens play is usually mediated through a device, and we want to encourage more face-to-face time for unstructured teen play because we know that makes a big difference in terms of human interaction and, as we heard earlier, happiness. So the P is playtime. The D in PDF is downtime. We've already talked about sleep. It's very, very important. If you get one thing out of the 20 minutes today, it's to get your kids to get to bed earlier and to have a better sleep hygiene routine where they're off the screens at least 45 minutes to an hour before bed. This is a great time to read a book together or have them do some, take a shower or a bath, have them listening to music is okay if they're winding down. Think winding down activities, lower the lights, right? Really focusing on not giving them a lot of sugar and caffeine. All of these things impact the sleep hygiene. You want to really permit time to chill, rest, rejuvenate, and just be. A really important part of a teenage life is figuring out who I want to be and what kind of friend I am and thinking kind of big thoughts. And they can't do that when they're literally running around from class to class to class to activity to activity to activity. Moderate doses of screen time that you have been co-watching, co-viewing, understand are developmentally appropriate, that's okay. Sometimes when I come home after a long day of work, I want to just sit and watch a comedy, right? Even better if you can do that with your kids. And encourage self-directed relaxation, right? Reading for pleasure, we know correlates with academic achievement. Going out for a run, what are the positive coping strategies that you can model? If the first thing that you do when you come home from work is say, oh, what a stressful day, pour me a beer, right? We're modeling that behavior that's how you deal with stress. Let's think about positive coping strategies that we can model for our kids during the downtime. And then the F in PDF is the most important one, and that is family time. Ideally, that's 25 minutes a day, 5 days a week, where the whole family is together. If that sounds impossible, start small and build up. Usually this is over dinner time, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any time, and weekends count, right? And ideally, it's nothing about sort of the dinner, the chicken or the pizza that's going on. It's a feeling that you get that you are part of a unit of unconditional love. that we are there for you no matter what. It actually helps to even say to your kids, I love you no matter what. I love you if you bring home a bad grade. I love you if you miss the catch in football, right? And there's a lot of nice research on the preserving time for family traditions. It could be faith-based. It could be traditions that you make up. Chores, because that helps so you know that you're part of this unit, that you can make a difference, that you have a role to play, that we need you as part of our family, and service activities. And again, you're going to hear more and more research about the benefit of doing service and how that improves mental health and well-being for kids. You can also do plugged-in time together. We would watch Amazing Race together or have lots of fun times as a family together, but also you want there to be unplugged time together. In my family, we used to do family walks. My kids would call them forced family marches, but we would do them pretty religiously to get their bodies in motion, but also to spend time as a family and to talk about things that mattered and just to have fun together. So if you think about PDF, this is the most important protective factor. At Challenge Success, we have some core pillars to help people understand these protective factors for kids, and that's really putting students at the center. We do lots of listening in exercises at schools. We have teachers shadow kids throughout the day. As parents and grandparents and family members, you want to talk to kids and really ask them, what is your experience like? How's your day going? Instead of the first thing you ask when they walk in the door is, how'd you do on the history test today? That sends a message that that's the most important thing that matters. We want you to ask instead, how's your day? How's you doing? Anything fun happening today? What can I do to make your life better? We get all the partners at the schools together, teachers, parents, kids, to work on specific changes that we can make at the schools, and everything we do is based in research. So the other little acronym for the day, as I wrap up, is the SPACE acronym, and that is every child needs his or her space in school, and that is the schedule becomes something very important. That's the S, the pedagogy that engages, that gets kids excited and energized instead of just sitting and listening to lectures and spitting back and taking tests all day long. The A is for alternative and authentic assessment. You assess authentically in business. You don't tell your employees that tomorrow they're going to have a test or a quiz. They don't know what it's going to be on. They can't use any of the resources around them, like their computers or their co-workers, to help them do it, and their next bonus depends on it, and you're the one assessing. That happens every day in schools. That is not how we assess for mastery. It's a very antiquated way to assess. The C is probably the most important, and that is really building a climate of care, focusing on social emotional learning, focusing on understanding and approaching kids with curiosity, and really rethinking how we do punishment and rewards in school. And then the E is doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is educating the community about what needs to happen to make schools better places to improve student well-being, engagement, and belonging. I've said a lot. There's a science that says if you ask someone to make a commitment and actually say it out loud at a certain point, they're going to remember it more. So I want you to think of one strategy that you've heard today that you might want to try this summer or in the fall. It could be a little strategy like we're going to try and have dinner together more often during the week. It could be a strategy like I'm not going to ask my kids about grades every 5 seconds, or we're going to reduce the overload of extracurriculars. Think of one strategy that you have control over that you want to try to increase well-being, belonging, and engagement for your child. We can't do this alone. It actually takes a village. Challenge Success is challenging that really narrow notion of success that our kids are living with that we know isn't necessarily best for them. And we are working upstream to make sure that a healthy kid who feels well-being, engagement, and belonging turns into a healthy adult who's the kind of employee that you want to hire at your companies. So next time you are with your kids, tell them how much you love them, and then probably send them to bed. Thanks for being a great audience.